The Governance of China, Volume 2, by Xi Jinping. Audiobook, Part 28. A Community of Shared Future. A new partnership of mutual benefit and a community of shared future. September 28, 2015. Speech at the General Debate of the 70th Session of the UN General Assembly at the UN headquarters in New York, the United States. Mr. President, dear colleagues, 70 years ago, those before us fought heroically and secured victory in World War II, closing a dark page in the annals of human history. That victory was hard won. 70 years ago, those before us, with vision and foresight, established the United Nations. This universal and most representative and authoritative international organization has carried mankind's hope for a new future and ushered in a new era of cooperation. This was a pioneering initiative never before undertaken. 70 years ago, those before us pooled together their wisdom and adopted the Charter of the United Nations, laying the cornerstone of contemporary international order and establishing the fundamental principles of contemporary international relations. This was an achievement of profound impact. Mr. President, dear colleagues, on September 3, 2015, the people of China, together with the rest of humanity, solemnly commemorated the 70th anniversary of victory in the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and World War II. As the main theater in the East, China made a national sacrifice of over 35 million casualties in its fight against the main forces of Japanese militarism. It not only saved itself and its people from subjugation, but also gave strong support to the forces combating aggression in the European and Pacific theaters, making a historic contribution to the ultimate victory. History is a mirror. Only by drawing lessons from history can the world avoid repeating past calamity. We should view history with awe and through the prism of human conscience. The past cannot be changed, but the future can be shaped. Bearing history in mind is not perpetuating hatred, rather its purpose is to ensure that we do not forget the lessons. Remembering history does not mean being obsessed with the past. Rather, in doing so, we aim to create a better future and pass the torch of peace from generation to generation. Mr. President, dear colleagues, over the past 7 decades, the United Nations has experienced both successes and setbacks. It has witnessed efforts made by all countries to uphold peace, build their own countries, and pursue cooperation. Having reached a new historical starting point, the United Nations needs to address the central issue of how to better promote world peace and development in the 21st century. The world is going through a historical process of accelerated evolution. The light of peace, development, and progress will be powerful enough to dispel the clouds of war, poverty, and backwardness. The movement towards a multipolar world and the rise of emerging markets and developing countries have become an irresistible trend of history. Economic globalization and the advent of an information age have greatly unleashed and boosted productive forces. They have presented unprecedented development opportunities while giving rise to new threats and challenges which we must face squarely. As an ancient Chinese adage goes, when the great way rules, the land under heaven belongs to the people. Footnote. See Note 11, page 163. End of footnote. Peace and development, fairness and justice, Democracy and freedom are common values of humanity and also the lofty goals of the United Nations. Yet these goals are far from being achieved. Therefore, we must continue our endeavors. In today's world, all countries are interdependent and share a common future. We should renew our commitment to the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, build a new model of international relations featuring mutually beneficial cooperation, and create a community of shared future for mankind. To achieve this goal, we need to make efforts in the following areas. We should build partnerships in which countries treat each other as equals, engage in extensive consultation, and enhance mutual understanding. The principle of sovereign equality underpins the Charter of the United Nations. The future of the world must be shaped by all countries. All countries are equal. The large, the strong, and the rich should not abuse the small, the weak, and the poor. The principle of sovereignty is not just embodied in the inviolability of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries and non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries. It is also embodied in the right of all countries to make their own choice of social systems and development paths. It also means that all countries' endeavors to promote economic and social development and improve their people's lives should be respected. We should commit ourselves to multilateralism and reject unilateralism. We should adopt a new vision of seeking positive outcomes for all and reject the outdated mindset of zero-sum games or winner-takes-all. Consultation is an important form of democracy, and it should also become an important means of exercising international governance. We should try to resolve disputes and differences through dialogue and consultation. We should forge a global partnership at both international and regional levels and embrace a new approach to state-to-state relations, one that features dialogue rather than confrontation and seeks partnership rather than alliance. Major countries should follow the principles of no conflict, no confrontation, mutual respect, and mutually beneficial cooperation in handling their relations. Major powers should treat small countries as equals and should try to balance between the greater good and their own interests by favoring the former over the latter. We should create a security environment featuring fairness, justice, joint efforts, and shared interests. In the age of economic globalization, the security of all countries is interlinked, and they impact each other. No country can maintain absolute security by its own efforts only, neither can any country achieve stability by destabilizing other countries. The law of the jungle leaves the weak at the mercy of the strong. It is not the way for countries to conduct their relations. Those who adopt the self-serving approach of using force will find that they are shooting themselves in the foot. We should abandon the Cold War mentality in all its manifestations and foster a new vision of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. We should give full play to the central role of the United Nations and its Security Council in ending conflict and keeping peace, and adopt the dual approach of seeking peaceful solutions to disputes and taking coercive actions so as to turn hostility into amity. We should advance international cooperation in both social and economic fields and take a holistic approach to addressing traditional and non-traditional security threats so as to prevent conflicts from breaking out in the first place. We should promote open, innovative, and inclusive development that benefits all. The 2008 global financial crisis has taught us that allowing capital to blindly pursue profit will result in chaos, and that global prosperity cannot be built on the shaky foundations of a market without moral constraints. The growing gap between rich and poor is both unfair and unsustainable. It is important for us to use both the invisible hand and the visible hand to form synergy between market forces and government functions and strive to achieve both efficiency and fairness. Development is meaningful only when it is inclusive and sustainable. To achieve such development requires openness, mutual assistance, and mutually beneficial cooperation. In the world today, close to 80 million people still live in extreme poverty, nearly 6 million children die before the age of 5 each year, and about 60 million children are unable to go to school. The recent UN Sustainable Development Summit adopted the post-2015 development agenda. We must translate our commitments into actions and work together to ensure that everyone is free from want, has access to development, and lives with dignity. We should increase inter-civilization exchanges to promote harmony, inclusiveness, and respect for differences. The world is more colorful as a result of its cultural diversity. Diversity breeds exchanges. Exchanges create integration, and integration makes progress possible. In their interactions, civilizations must accept their differences. Only through mutual respect, mutual learning, and harmonious coexistence can the world maintain its diversity and thrive. Each social model represents the unique vision and contribution of its people, and no model is superior to others. Different civilizations should engage in dialogue and exchanges instead of trying to exclude or replace each other. The history of humanity is a process of exchanges, interactions, and integration among different civilizations. We should respect all civilizations and treat each other as equals. We should draw inspiration from each other to boost the creative development of human civilization. We should build an ecosystem that puts Mother Nature and green development first. Humanity may utilize nature and even try to transform it, but we are ultimately a part of nature. We should care for nature and not place ourselves above it. We should reconcile industrial development with nature and pursue harmony between man and nature to achieve sustainable development throughout the world and the all-round development of humanity. To build a sound ecology is vital for humanity's future. All members of the international community should work together to build a sound global eco-environment. We should respect nature, follow nature's ways, and protect nature. We should firmly pursue green, low-carbon, circular, and sustainable development. China will shoulder its share of responsibility and continue to play its part in this common endeavor. We also urge developed countries to fulfill their historical responsibilities, honor their emissions reduction commitments, and help developing countries mitigate and adapt to climate change. Mr. President, dear colleagues, more than 1.3 billion Chinese people are endeavoring to realize the Chinese dream of national rejuvenation. The dream of the Chinese people is closely related to the dreams of other peoples of the world. We cannot realize the Chinese dream without a peaceful international environment, a stable international order, or the understanding, support, and help of the rest of the world. The realization of the Chinese dream will bring greater opportunities to other countries and contribute to global peace and development. China will continue to participate in building world peace. We are committed to peaceful development, no matter how the international landscape may evolve and how strong we may become. China will never pursue hegemony or expansion, nor will it seek to create spheres of influence. China will continue to contribute to global development. We will continue to pursue common progress and mutually beneficial strategy of opening up. We are ready to share our experience and opportunities with other countries and welcome them aboard our development train heading towards common development. China will continue to uphold the international order. We will remain committed to the path of development through cooperation. China was the first country to put its signature on the Charter of the United Nations. We will continue to uphold the international order and system underpinned by the purposes and principles of that charter. China will continue to stand together with other developing countries. We firmly support greater representation and say for developing countries, especially African countries, in international governance. China's vote in the United Nations will always belong to the developing countries. I wish to take this opportunity to announce China's decision to establish a 10-year U.S. $1 billion China UN Peace and Development Fund to support the work of the United Nations, advance multilateral cooperation, and make a greater contribution to world peace and development. I wish to announce that China will join the new UN peacekeeping capability readiness system and has thus decided to take the lead in setting up a permanent peacekeeping squad and building a peacekeeping standby force of 8,000 troops. I also wish to announce that China will provide a total of US $100 million in free military aid to the African Union in the next 5 years to support the establishment of the African Standby Force and the African capacity for immediate response to crisis. Mr. President, dear colleagues, as the United Nations enters a new decade, let us unite ever more closely to build a new partnership of mutual benefit and a community of shared future for mankind. Let the vision of a world free of war and enjoying lasting peace take root in our hearts. Let the aspirations of development, prosperity, fairness, and justice spread across the world. Thank you. Build a win-win, equitable, and balanced governance mechanism on climate change. November 30th, 2015. Speech at the opening ceremony of the Paris Conference on Climate Change. President Hollande, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, today we are gathering here in Paris for the opening ceremony of the United Nations Conference on Climate Change. Our presence shows that terrorism cannot hold back mankind's efforts to address climate change and to pursue a better future. Let me take this opportunity to express my sincere sympathy to the French people. Footnote 1. On November 15, 2015, Paris suffered a terrorist attack at the Bataclan nightclub that killed 130 people. End of footnote 1. And my gratitude to President Hollande and the French government for their meticulous preparations for this conference. Thanks to the joint effort by all parties since the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, entered into force over 20 years ago, global actions on climate change have made progress, although there are still numerous difficulties and challenges. This Paris Conference is hence convened to strengthen implementation of the UNFCCC and produce a comprehensive, balanced, ambitious, and binding agreement on climate change. The conference is also expected to come up with equitable, reasonable, and effective global solutions to climate change and explore pathways and governance models for mankind to achieve sustainable development. The French writer Victor Hugo observed in Les Miserables that supreme resources spring from extreme resolutions. I believe that with all parties making joint efforts with sincerity and confidence, the Paris Conference will yield satisfying results and meet the high expectations of the international community. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a successful international agreement should not simply address immediate challenges. More importantly, it should also present a vision for the future. The Paris Agreement should focus on strengthening post-2020 global actions on climate change and boost global efforts to pursue sustainable development. The Paris Agreement should help meet the goals of the UNFCCC and chart the course for green development. The agreement should follow the principles and rules set out in the UNFCCC and contribute to its full and effective implementation. The agreement should place effective controls on the increase in atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gases and set up incentive mechanisms to encourage countries to pursue green, circular, and low-carbon development so as to achieve economic growth and effectively respond to climate change at the same time. The Paris Agreement should help galvanize global efforts and encourage broad participation. The agreement should provide institutional arrangements to encourage countries to make concerted efforts. In addition to governments, it should also mobilize all sectors in society, including businesses and non-governmental organizations, to participate in international cooperation in climate change, thus raising public awareness of climate change and pooling resources for the effort to address the issue. The Paris Agreement should help increase input of resources to ensure actions on climate change. To obtain financial and technical support for capacity building is essential for developing countries to address climate change. Developed countries should honor their commitment of mobilizing US $100 billion every year from now until 2020 and provide stronger financial support to developing countries afterwards. It is also important that climate-friendly technologies should be transferred to developing countries to help them build green economies. The Paris Agreement should accommodate the national conditions in various countries and lay emphasis on practical results. It is imperative to respect differences among countries, especially developing countries, in domestic policies, capacity building, and economic structure. A one-size-fits-all approach must be avoided. Addressing climate change should not deny the legitimate needs of developing countries to reduce poverty and improve their people's living standards. The particular needs of developing countries must be given due attention. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the Paris Agreement is not the finishing line, but rather a new starting point. Global efforts on climate change, an important element of global governance, can serve as a mirror for us to reflect on the best model for future global governance, and on ways to build a community of shared future for mankind. Much valuable inspiration can be drawn therefrom. We should create a future of win-win cooperation, with every country making its contribution to the best of its ability. For global issues like climate change, a utilitarianism-oriented take more, give less approach is in nobody's interests. The Paris Conference should reject the narrow-minded mentality of zero-sum games and call on all countries, to the developed countries in particular, to assume a greater share of responsibilities for win-win outcomes. We should create a future of the rule of law, fairness, and justice. It is imperative to enhance the standing and role of international law in global governance, ensure effective observance and implementation of international rules, uphold democracy, equality, and justice, and build the international rule of law. There are enormous gaps between developed and developing countries in historical responsibility for current problems, in the stage of development they have reached, and in their ability to respond to climate change. Therefore, the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities is all the more important now. It must continue to be respected. We should create a future of inclusiveness, mutual learning, and common development. Facing global challenges, countries need to increase dialogue and share and learn best practices. We should draw on each other's strengths to achieve common development through mutual learning and for the benefit of all our people. At the same time, we should allow individual countries to seek their own solutions that best suit their respective national conditions in the spirit of seeking harmony without uniformity. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, China has been actively engaged in the global campaign on climate change. China is both sincere and determined to contribute its share to the success of the Paris Conference. In the past few decades, China has seen rapid economic growth and significant improvement in the living standards of its people. However, this has taken a toll on the environment and resources. Having learned the lesson, China is making vigorous ecological endeavors to promote green, circular, and low-carbon growth. We have integrated our climate change efforts into the country's medium and long-term program of economic and social development. We attach equal importance to mitigation of and adaptation to climate change and try to make progress on all fronts by applying legal and administrative means, technology, and market forces. China's installed capacity of renewable energy accounts for 24% of the world's total, with newly installed capacity accounting for 42% of the global total. China tops the world in terms of energy conservation and utilization of new and renewable energies. All things live in harmony and grow with nourishment. Footnote 2, Xunzi. Into footnote 2. Chinese culture values harmony between man and nature and respects nature. Going forward, ecological endeavors will feature prominently in China's 13th Five-Year Plan for Economic and Social Development. China will work hard to implement the vision of innovative, coordinated, green, open, and inclusive development. On the basis of technological and institutional innovation, China will adopt new policies and measures to improve the mix of its industries, build a low-carbon energy system, develop green buildings and low-carbon transportation, and build a nationwide carbon emission trading market so as to foster a new pattern of modernization featuring harmony between man and nature. In its intended nationally determined contributions, China pledges to peak CO2 emissions by around 2030 and strive to achieve this sooner if possible, and by 2030 to reduce CO2 per unit of GDP by 60 to 65% over the 2005 level, to raise the contribution of non-fossil fuels in primary energy consumption to about 20%, and to increase the forest stock volume by around 4.5 billion cubic meters compared with 2005. This will require strenuous efforts, but we have the confidence and the resolve to fulfill our commitments. China stands for upholding the greater good and pursuing shared interest, and takes an active part in international cooperation in climate change. Over the years, the Chinese government has earnestly fulfilled its policy commitments in terms of South-South cooperation regarding climate change to support developing countries, especially the least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island developing states in confronting the challenge of climate change. In a show of greater support, China announced in September this year the establishment of a renminbi 20 million South-South Climate Cooperation Fund. Next year, China will launch cooperation projects for developing countries, including setting up 10 pilot low-carbon industrial parks, starting 100 mitigation and adaptation programs, and providing them with 1,000 training opportunities on climate change. China will continue to promote international cooperation in such areas as clean energy, disaster prevention and reduction, ecological protection, climate-smart agriculture, and low-carbon and smart cities. China will also help other developing countries to increase their financing capacity. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, tackling climate change is a shared mission for humanity. All eyes are now on Paris. Let us join hands and contribute to the establishment of an equitable and effective global mechanism on climate change, global sustainable development at a higher level, and new international relations based on win-win cooperation. Thank you. Work together to build a healthy cyberspace. December 16th, 2015. Part of the speech at the opening ceremony of the Second World Internet Conference. With the development of world multipolarity, economic globalization, cultural diversity, and IT application, the Internet will play a bigger role in the progress of human civilization. At the same time, however, such problems as unbalanced development, inadequate rules, and inequitable order have become more evident in the field of the Internet. The information gap between different countries and regions is widening, and the existing rules governing cyberspace struggle to meet the needs and interests of the majority of countries. Infringements of individual privacy and intellectual property rights, as well as cybercrimes, happen frequently around the world. Cyber surveillance, cyber attacks, and cyber terrorism have become a global scourge. In the face of these problems and challenges, the international community must enhance dialogue and cooperation in the spirit of mutual respect and mutual trust, promote transformation of the global internet governance system, and work together to foster a peaceful, secure, open, and cooperative cyberspace, and put in place a multilateral, democratic, and transparent global internet governance system. To make progress in the transformation of the global internet governance system, the following principles must be upheld. Respect for cyber sovereignty. The principle of sovereign equality enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations is one of the basic norms in contemporary international relations. It covers all aspects of state-to-state relations, and therefore it should also apply to cyberspace. We should respect the right of individual countries to independently choose their own path of cyber development, model of cyber regulation, and internet public policies, and participate in international cyberspace governance on an equal footing. No country should pursue cyber hegemony, interfere in other countries' internal affairs, or support, engage in, or conspire around cyber activities that may undermine other countries' national security. Maintenance of peace and security. A secure, stable, and booming cyberspace is of great importance to all countries and the world as a whole. In the real world, there are still lingering wars, shadows of terrorism, and incidents of crime. Cyberspace should not become a battlefield for countries to wrestle with one another. Still less should it become a hotbed of crime. Countries should work together to prevent and oppose the use of cyberspace for criminal activities such as terrorism, pornography, drug trafficking, money laundering, and gambling. We should crack down on all cybercrimes in accordance with relevant laws and international conventions, whether commercial cyber thefts or hacker attacks against government networks. No double standards should be allowed in ensuring cybersecurity. We cannot accept the security of just one or some countries while others are left insecure. Still less should one country seek its own absolute security at the expense of the security of others. Promotion of openness and cooperation. An old Chinese saying goes, "When there is mutual care, the world will be in good order. When there is mutual hatred, the world will be in chaos." Footnote 1. Mo Zi. End of footnote 1. To improve the global internet governance system and maintain order in cyberspace, we should observe the principles of mutual support, mutual trust, and mutual benefit, and reject the old mentality of the zero-sum game or winner takes all. All countries should advance opening up and cooperation in cyberspace and further substantiate and enhance their opening up efforts. We should also build more platforms for communication and cooperation and identify more convergent points of interest, growth areas for cooperation, and opportunities for win-win outcomes. Efforts should be made to facilitate complementarity of strengths and common development of all countries in cyberspace so that more countries and people may get aboard the express train of the information age and benefit from internet development. Good order. As in the real world, both freedom and order are necessary in cyberspace. Freedom is what order is meant for, and order is the guarantor of freedom. We should respect the right of internet users to engage ideas and express their minds, and we should also build a good order in cyberspace in accordance with the law, as it will help protect the legitimate rights and interests of all internet users. Cyberspace is not a place beyond the rule of law. Cyberspace is virtual, but players in cyberspace are real. Everyone should abide by the law, and the rights and obligations of parties concerned should be clearly defined. Cyberspace must be governed, operated, and used in accordance with the law so that the internet can achieve healthy development under the rule of law. At the same time, greater efforts should be made to promote ethical standards and civilized behavior in cyberspace. We should give full play to the role of moral standards and teaching in guiding the use of the internet to make sure that the best accomplishments of human civilization will nourish the growth of cyberspace and help rehabilitate the cyber ecology. Cyberspace is a common space for human activities. The future of cyberspace should be in the hands of all countries. Countries should step up communication, broaden consensus, and extend cooperation to jointly build a community of shared future in cyberspace. To this end, I wish to propose 5 points. First, speed up the building of global internet infrastructure and promote interconnectivity. The essence of the internet is connectivity, and herein lies the value of information. Only when the IT infrastructure is well developed can information flow smoothly, can the digital divide between different countries, regions, and communities be narrowed, and the full flow of information resources ensured. China is now implementing the Broadband China strategy. It is estimated that by 2020, the broadband network in China will, by and large, cover every village. The last kilometer of internet infrastructure will be linked up thanks to this strategy, and more people will have access to the internet. China stands ready to work with all parties concerned, increase investment and technical support to accelerate the building of global internet infrastructure and enable more developing countries and their peoples to take advantage of the development opportunities brought by the internet. Second, build an online platform for cultural exchange and mutual learning. Culture and civilization are enriched through exchange and mutual learning. The internet is an important carrier to spread the best of humanity's cultures and promote positive energy. China is ready to build, through the internet, a bridge of international, cultural interaction and mutual learning for people of all countries to share the cultures of the world and their thoughts and feelings, and enhance mutual understanding. We will work with other countries to leverage the strength of the internet as a communication platform so that people in other countries may come to know more about Chinese culture and the Chinese people can learn more of theirs. Together we will promote the prosperity and development of cyber culture, which in turn will enrich people's minds and thoughts and advance human civilization and progress. Third, promote innovative development of the cyber economy for common prosperity. The world economy is on a difficult and tortuous path to recovery. The Chinese economy is also under some downward pressure. Solutions lie in innovation-driven development, which will open new horizons. China is now implementing the Internet Plus Action Plan, advancing the building of Digital China, developing the sharing economy, and supporting internet-based innovation in all forms, with a view to improving the quality and efficiency of development. The robust growth of the internet in China has provided a sizable market for enterprises and business startups of all countries. China's door of opening up will never close. Our policy towards foreign investment will not change. Our protection of the legitimate rights and interests of foreign invested enterprises will not change. And our commitment to providing better services to foreign companies in their investment and business activities in China will not change. As long as they abide by China's laws, enterprises and business starters from all countries are warmly welcome to invest and do business in China. We are ready to step up cooperation with all countries through the development of cross-border e-commerce and the building of information economy demonstration zones. We will be able to spur the growth of worldwide investment and trade and promote global development of the digital economy. Fourth, maintain cybersecurity, and promote orderly development. Security and development are like the two wings of a bird or the two wheels of a cart. Security ensures development, and development is the goal of security. Cybersecurity poses a global challenge. No country can distance itself or remain immune from such challenges. Maintaining cybersecurity is the shared responsibility of the international community. All countries should work together to contain the abuse of information technology, oppose cyber surveillance and cyber attacks, and reject an arms race in cyberspace. China will work with all other countries to step up dialogue and exchanges and effectively manage differences. We will work with all parties for the formulation of international cyberspace rules acceptable to all parties and an international convention against terrorism in cyberspace. Improve the legal support mechanism to fight cybercrime and jointly uphold peace and security in cyberspace. Fifth, build an internet governance system to promote fairness and justice. International cyberspace governance should feature a multilateral approach with multi-party participation. It should be based on consultation between all parties, leveraging the role of various players, including governments, international organizations, internet companies, technology communities, non-governmental institutions, and individual citizens. There can be no room for unilateralism. Decisions should not be made with one party calling the shots or only a few parties discussing among themselves. All countries should step up communication and exchange, improve dialogue and consultation mechanisms on cyberspace, and study and formulate global internet governance rules, so that the global internet governance system becomes fairer and more reasonable and reflects in a more balanced way the aspirations and interests of the majority of countries. This World Internet Conference is being held precisely for the purpose of building a platform for all to govern and benefit from the global internet, and to work together for the healthy development of the internet.